Hello, everyone, and welcome to another inspiring session of Author Conversation. I am Navya from White Falcon Publishing, and today we are truly honored to be joined by an extraordinary literary voice, poet, educator, mentor, life coach, and internationally acclaimed author, Dr. Sezina Khan. Originally from Chandigarh and now based in Dubai, Dr. Khan has won hearts across the globe through her emotionally profound poetry collections, including The Chamber of Expressions, From Shadows to Souls, Echoes of the Heart, and now her latest release, Through the Despairs. This collection of 100 poems takes readers through emotions of grief, healing, loneliness, love, memory, resilience, and hope. It is not just poetry, it is an emotional experience that gently reminds us that even in our darkest moments, light still exists. So, ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and we welcome you. And before we begin our conversation, I would like you to please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Navya, for this beautiful introduction. I believe you've said it all. But yes, journey as a writer started very long ago, and it's been a very close association that I have with White Falcon Publishing for two major reasons: for the quality of work that I get from them. The second is obviously, since I'm from Chandigarh, why not get a publication house which comes from my own beautiful city?
Yes,
So, this is all
definitely.
about me.
Okay, thank you so much for this introduction, ma'am. Let's move on to the questions now. So, ma'am, my first question from you is like throughout the collection, despair almost feels like a silent companion rather than just an emotion. Poems like the Silent Scream and the Hollow Echo suggest that pain changes the way we see ourselves and the world around us. So, in your opinion, does despair break a person or can it also become a source of transformation?
To be honest, what a lovely question. But to be honest, despair has the power to break what is superficially within us, and I do not believe that it always destroys the sense of who we are. But in many ways, despair strips life of illusion, and it also allows you to see face to face your vulnerable self, which we really, in today's world, we really are shy to see that part, because
Yes.
right now in a professional setup or your personal setup, you're always trying to be the ideal mom, ideal sister, ideal wife, ideal leader, ideal writer. That idealism which surrounds us actually lets us not to look at that vulnerable self which needs an attention. So I feel that once you explore that vulnerability, once you get perspective about love, trust, silence, and even your own reflection, and within that fracture, there's also the possibility of becoming. When I say about the possibility of becoming, what happens is you see things with greater depth. You are able to see things with more compassion, courage, which we really do not feel till the time you have seen that vulnerable self, till the time you have shed off that layer to see that what fears have to face for you. Like, how are you going to be facing your fears? So I feel that once you have that capacity to rebuild yourself, it can only happen once you've gone through the despair.
Yes, ma'am. I also agree to this, and that's such a powerful and beautiful perspective. Thank you for sharing this. And moving on to the next question, ma'am. So, what stand out in your poetry is that even while writing about grief and loneliness, your words never lose tenderness. There's always a quiet sense of hope hidden beneath the sorrow. How do you emotionally navigate that balance while writing?
To be honest, tenderness is the soul's way of refusing to become bitter. Right now, we are surrounded by a lot of toxicity, and irrespective of how positive you try to be, you still have toxic environment, you have toxic people around you. So, what happens when you actually start writing about grief and loneliness? It is not that I romanticize pain or I enjoy writing about pain and sorrow, but at the same time, when I'm writing it, I'm also acknowledging it. So understanding that acknowledgement is very, very, very important. So getting that nuances is very important, that you do not allow pain to have the final word. But at the same time, you do have to acknowledge that journey of going through that pain, acknowledging what struggles are you going to face, and then having that fragility of seeing how you navigating through that pain. It's like a beautiful, I mean, again, you would think that I'm romanticizing pain, but it's a beautiful path that we lead. While we are in that pain, we are also gradually becoming stronger. And that will only be able to see once we have overcome that journey. You won't realize it when you're already broken and you're fractured. I would say that your fractured soul won't realize it.
Right.
But as you navigate through it, you actually reach that alley where you see everything as beautiful. And when you look back at that path, you're able to see, oh, what a beautiful self have you become. So that tenderness actually comes with your evolving nature. And that's the beauty of life, that irrespective of how much pain we endure, we become stronger, but at the same time, it makes you humble. That humility can only come when you have seen the bitter reality of life.
Yes, yes. I could relate to it. And yes, you are right that acknowledgement is the first step towards healing. So if we are not able to acknowledge our pain and the suffering, we will not be able to heal from it and move on from it. So that's 100% right. Okay. Um, Okay, moving on to the next question. Ma'am, many of your poems draw emotional power from very ordinary moments, like an empty chair, fading light, whispers at night, pillow thoughts. So, why do you think human emotions often reveal themselves most honestly in silence and stillness?
To be honest, silence has the power of removing the performance. When I talk about performance, in the noise of every day, we often become what world requires us to be. You're like, you need to be calm, you need to be compassionate, you need to be accommodating, you need to be adaptable, you need to be functional, you need to be smiling. Right? We all get to hear all of it throughout the day, irrespective
Yes.
you're at home, you need to be accommodating everyone. When you're a leader at your workplace, you need to be listening, you need to show emotional intelligence, you need to be adaptable, your IQ, everything is a tick mark at that point of
Yes.
time. But what happens in stillness? This is where, when there's no audience to you, there are no obligations attached to you. That is where the truest emotions become to surface. That is where you actually see what an empty chair can speak to you than the louder crowd. When you're sitting, right now I'm sitting, and then that also allows that introspection to happen, where you're able to think that how should you be processing the things which you were processing. So that is where I feel that fading light, midday thoughts, or even the pillow that has seen the unshed tears. So these are subtle metaphors in life which comes across, but it goes back to us. How are we perceiving it? Are we mourning over it? Are we wailing over it? Or are we actually, in Gen Z's word we say it, are we winging it? So, it all goes back to us. And then for me, I'm drawn towards such images because they remind me of human pain has a rarity of being dramatic. Rather, in its truest form, it brings you closer to your own self. And I feel that even if it sits beside you, it runs through nights, it runs through days, but it also tells you that that is the constant company that you're going to have. But then at the same time, it is those small things or those silent moments or that happens within your heart or even within the unseen world, it is that those profound moments which makes us truly humans. So that is why tenderness is the key, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. You have beautifully expressed it. And there is phrase or a saying that you must have heard. Like people always expect us to be 100% perfect, but nobody tell us or like it's okay to be not okay. Nobody tells us
True.
this.
True.
Right? So we cannot be our 100% true self in every situation and every day. So yeah, I think this is somewhere relatable to your answer. That's why I've mentioned it. Okay.
Very, very true. The very perfectly, on point. Like it's really important to see that you can't be perfect all the time. And then what
Yes.
happens just if you're trying to be that perfect image, you're trying to portray that image, what happens is all that anxiety bottles up. And that, till the time it doesn't has the right kind of vent, that leads to anxiety and depressions and so many
Yes.
other things. So why not to be not okay? I'm not feeling okay. That's about it. Like acknowledge that. And that's something it's not related to writing, but something which UAE has done recently is we have started we actually get well-being off. So you can actually take 5 well-being off. Like I'm not
Okay.
feeling you're not sick, but you're not well, you're not
Well,
emotionally well,
yeah.
you don't feel like showing up. And that's okay. That is being acknowledged by the government. So I feel that these kind of smaller changes are actually telling what is the importance of mental well-being.
Yes.
That is something we have ignored it for long,
Yes.
and that's the same thing that you're mentioning at the point of time. So yes.
Yes, yes. And also, ma'am, it's actually hard these days to find the safe space where we can actually tell people that we are
Yes,
not feeling okay without mentioning any reason because there is
without being judged.
yeah, without being judged, of course. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Ma'am, poems like The Absence of You and Echoes of Goodbye explore the idea that people may leave physically but remain emotionally present within us. So, do you think memories heal us over time, or do they simply teach us how to live alongside loss?
Oh, I believe memories do both, but not in a simple and a linear manner which we would expect. At first, memories are actually wounds because they remind us of longer physically present person or the emotion which you had. It's a voice, gesture, or a shared experience or a familiar phrase all of us can open to. But over a period of time, it also allows us to grieve honestly. Memories can begin to soften, like that's what I felt like. Both my parents are not there with me anymore. They passed away long ago. But eventually, this is something that I felt. And while I traveled, I did have conversations with people of different age, different cultures. And with those kind of exposures and discussions, I did discover that memories work both ways for us. And the best part is they may not be able to erase the loss, but it also helps you form a new relationship with it. Like every time I do something nice in my life, every time I'm acknowledged at international pedestal, I miss my parents. But at the same time, when I'm in my lowest moments, I also miss them. So, you, irrespective of how you move across, how you navigate, you are associated with those memories. It works both ways. Healing does not always mean about forgetting or moving out of it completely. Sometimes healing is also about learning to carry what is going with it, allowing to navigate as your life is moving with it. And memories also become a bridge between love and acceptance. So I would say that they teach us that absence is not always emptiness, but sometimes it's also a lingering shape that something mattered more, something that
Yeah.
had a better connection. So I would say, in Through the Despairs, I wanted to honor this complexity. The way goodbyes can echo for years, yet become the music of who we are. So that forms a sense of how one single goodbye, irrespective of you've departed with your own will or by God's grace, whatever it is, you're still enjoying that phase. You're always navigating with that goodbye. So yeah.
You have beautifully expressed it again. And, there is also a saying, people usually say this, that of course we never forget people who are close to us, but we somewhere learn to live in their absence, right? We
That's
learn
the
to
void
live.
which we live. Yes,
Yes, yes, right.
very true.
Okay. Okay. So moving on to the next question. So ma'am, you have worn many hats: educator, mentor, life coach, literary leader, and each role involves understanding people deeply. Has observing human emotions and struggles in real life become one of the most strongest inspirations behind your poetry?
Absolutely. My work as an educator, mentor, literary reader, or a life coach has brought me closer to what human stories are, what human connections are, what ambition, failure, resilience, hidden grief, reinvention, all this carries that quiet courage that we all have. People often carry the entire world within them. This is what I have to say. Even when they appear perfectly calm and composed, observing the emotional complexity there is deeper poetry that is going on within them. So, in classrooms, conversation, mentorship spaces, or literary circles, I've seen how people search for meaningful experiences. I have witnessed that how silence sometimes can say more than speeches, how confidence can coexist with vulnerability. So, irrespective of whichever domain we are, these observations do not become the poetry as a director in a literary way, but it also deepens our understanding of human conditions. And that's what my poetry gets inspired from my own inner world, but also at the same time that seeing how emotional landscape exists around me. How do I encounter it with different cultures, different places which I visit? I also believe writing has the unspoken power that deserves the acknowledgement, that deserves the recognition.
Okay, moving on to the next question. So today's world moves very fast and people often struggle to pause and process their emotions. So your poetry still continues to touch readers profoundly. Why do you think poetry remains relevant in such emotionally overwhelming times?
To be honest, poetry remains relevant because it gives people the permission to pause. In the world obsessed with speed, productivity, visibility, constant response, the constant competition that we are in, it allows that stillness which we all need. It does not demand any kind of immediate answers. It allows us to explain. It allows us to reflect without any judgment. This is something that we need it. Irrespective of any profession that you're in, you have that constant urge to be at the top. You constantly put under the pressure that you don't want to be in. Your inner self doesn't want to be in. So we live in an emotionally overwhelming times where many people are connected digitally but disconnected to their own selves.
Right, yes.
So it's high time that we realize the sanctuary what lies in our own space, in our own voice, and in this vast emotion of fine lining of understanding what vulnerability is, what the competitive world has to offer, and what your truer self needs. What are you, and what is that girl or that child within you needs? So a pen or a poem becomes your mirror of a confession, a companion in the more times where you actually need deeper healing. I think readers still turn to poetry because it speaks to them other than what technology has to offer or what your chat gpt or other tools have to offer. So that trembling, searching, deeper soul that we cannot find in real world, that is where poetry comes in. So below the success, there's a memory, there's a longingness, there's love, grief, and hope that we all need to look at.
Yes, yes, definitely, ma'am. That's such an important point. People these days really need to, look at themselves and need a pause so that they can feel connected to themselves. And also, we always say ki you should be aware about your emotions and everything, but some people are, they don't even know how to look at themselves and how to know about themselves. They don't know how to do this. So I feel people are very less aware about this thing also. So we need to work there as well. But let's see. Okay, move on to the next question. Um, so as readers move through the collection, there's a noticeable emotional journey from despair and grief toward reflection, acceptance, and eventually light in poems like Golden Rays. Was the arrangement of these poems intentionally designed as an emotional progression?
Yes, the arrangement was very intentional. I wanted through the despairs like a emotional passage. You know, it should be like an alley rather than just a random collection of poems. Despair rarely, transforms instantly. It is the path that has to go through different stages. And to be honest, to take you through those stages, first is the shock, then is the silence, then is the grief, and then is the questioning, remembrance, acceptance. And once you reach that acceptance level, it is only after that you acknowledge that possibility of life, that possibility of light coming through, that beacon of hope that can only come through once you've gone through all these process of shock, grief, questioning, remembrance. Getting over that denial phase is very important. So I wanted the readers to experience the moment gradually. I wanted them to go through this passage one by one in a way that you acknowledge all these steps. Then only you'll be able to reflect. You'll be actually able to go back to Maslow's theory, which leads us to self actualization as well. So the earlier poems deal with deeply in pain, emptiness, emotional fragmentation, because that is often where the despair begins. But as you progress, you will see that it becomes more reflective. It's not only about sorrow, but it begins to understand it. And by the time you reach golden ray, you will now see that light is not only naive or untouched by suffering. In the light that has passed through darkness, it is where the deeper sense lies. So to through the despairs is actually being seen through the darkness. Once you reaching that alley, you going on a pathway and you cannot see the light, or I would say you cannot enjoy the ray of life till the time you've actually seen the darkness. So that is where the progression happens. And progression is also a mirror. What I think about is healing. It is not escaping through despair, but walking through it until your soul learns to see it again. So it is also not enjoying the phase, but actually going through it day by day. And, as we say, take day at a time, one day at a time. It's
Yes,
actually living by that quote.
yes, definitely, ma'am. Okay. Um, okay, to the next question. My next question from you is, so like having roots in India and experiences shaped by life in Dubai, your poetry carries both intimacy and universality. How has living being between cultures influenced your understanding of emotions and storytelling?
So, living between cultures has actually expanded my emotional vocabulary, I would say. India gives me the deep connection to memory, tradition, family, language, and layered expression of feeling. Dubai is an extraordinary, multicultural landscape. It has taught me what humanity is across borders, accents, aspirations, lived experiences. Together, these worlds have shaped what I say are understood stories. When I live between cultures, you begin to actually realize that emotional is not only personal, but it is profoundly universal as
Yes.
well. Grief may be expressed through different societies, but the ache recognized is everywhere. Love may wear different customs, but the longingness is familiar to all the cultures. Hope may speak of different languages, but the essence is shared. This cultural intersection has allowed my poetry to hold that intimacy without getting associated with any kind of geographical dimension, I would say. And I write from specific emotional truth, but then it also allows me to resonate to some things which are universal. When I write about wars, when I write about going through certain pain in a certain situation, so you're looking at different backgrounds and then coming back to it from different diverse cultural or multicultural journey of mine, where I travel across the world, I'm able to see how it traverses, how despair traverses through the world as well. So, yes, that is where my oldest homeland and how it connects me to UAE as a diasporic writer as well.
Okay, and I think, ma'am, that's the reason that readers are able to connect so naturally with your words because the emotions feel universal, right? My next question, ma'am. So, if someone closes through the despairs after reading the final poem, what is the one emotional truth or realization you hope remains with them long after the book is over?
I hope they remember that despair is not the end of self. It may silence us for a while, but it does not change our dreams. It may feel that the world is unbearably heavy, but it does not need to be the final chapter of our life. The emotional truth that I want readers to carry with them is the deepest darkness, something there is that is on a search of light. That search may be fragile. It may begin with a whisper rather than a declaration, but it is still sacred. Through the despairs, it's ultimately looking about at the book of pain, but not ending at pain. It is a book of endurance, tenderness, and the quiet miracle of becoming what your newer self has rebuilt going through that despair. the phases which I recently spoke about. If a writer closed the book feeling seen, less alone, and gently remembered of their own resilience, then the poem has fully, met its purpose. Despair may not visit us all the time, but it does define us. Even after the longest night, the soul still comes back to its own self. So, going back to your inner self, being able to see what you have made out of the despair is something which is very unique, but which is also enlightening in its own way.
And that's such a beautiful message to leave readers with. Okay, ma'am. So before we conclude, I would also love to hear a little about your publishing journey with White Falcon Publishing House. Every book journey is a collaborative experience, and feedback always helps us grow. So, looking back at your experience with our team, what is that one thing you truly appreciated, and one area where you feel we can improve even further as a publishing house?
My publishing journey with Wild Falcon Publishing House has been meaningful and professionally enriching experience. And to be honest, it started with a reference that I got from a fellow friend who's also author, Hemlata Negi. So she was an author with White Falcon House, and we were in a conversation, and she was like, "Oh, you should try them for the professional work which they do." And then there was another friend of mine who I nominated, like Ritika Saini. She's also another author. So it's also one author rooting for another author, and that's how we start building on the community. But to be honest, what I really appreciate is a sense of trust and that creative respect that extends through the process. As an author, one of the most assuring aspect is knowing that emotional essence of the manuscript is understood and felt throughout the team. Whether I would clearly name Ritika or Shrikesh. Now I know people, I know Hardeep, I know people who have been working on my cover design, I know people who have been working on the interior design, and even looking at the aesthetics, even looking at the font size and what my idea is. It's very important to understand where the author is coming from, but at the same time, having a conversation to what can make the book more profound for the readers. So that is something that I really enjoy with White Falcon House. The coordination, communication, the willingness to support the book's journey from manuscript to the publication makes the experience collaborative rather than just transactional, if I have to say. One of the areas where I feel White Falcon House can grow in strengthening is post publication visibility and author engagement, which you have already started. Like, I would say this is my eighth book which I'm working with White Falcon House. But when I started, there was a way we could still develop. Now you've come up with a beautiful page where you are having authors come in, share their experiences, and you've started that post publication process as well, where you have the giveaways not only for just the readers but getting the authors involved to reflect on others authors. This is very important. So I feel that you've already started on that journey of curating those author features, sustaining those digital visibility, more structured marketing support, periodic updates. So overall, I value the professionalism and sincerity of the entire team. White Falcon can contribute to the not only to elevate the book, but also voicing the journey of authors behind it. So yes, it's been a phenomenal experience working with White Falcon because they understand what I want, and that's why I keep coming back. Like all my 7 books which I have published with White Falcon House have been bestsellers. The eighth one is on its way. So that is something I really cherish. And obviously, the Chandigarh Connect has to be there because the publication is established in Chandigarh. That's my hometown. So yeah, that's
Thank
that's
you.
the bit
Yeah.
about
Thank you
the
so
White
much
Falcon.
for thank you so much for the honest answer, and thank you for the appreciation. And yeah, again, we are working on our weak areas, so we will definitely improve. Thank you for sharing that too. So, ma'am, this has been such a heartfelt and insightful conversation. And at last, I want to ask if you have a final message for your readers or aspiring writers.
To be honest, it was lovely interacting with you, Navya, and the way you had framed out questions, understanding where the author is coming from, and most importantly, what the book actually meant. because understanding how do you see the nuances of through the despairs. It's a journey that we go in, and to acknowledge every single step. There's no shortcut to despair. So understanding that becomes very important, and that's how I would connect it to budding writers as well. Understand your journey as a writer, acknowledge it, and obviously we all go back to seeking affirmations, and you also mentioned talking about safe space. So
Yes, yes.
understand what is your safe space as a writer. Where should you be actually going and discussing about your book or sharing your ideas? Because seeking advice is nice, but it should also come from veterans in your own field so that they can guide you on the right path. Instead, if you are astray, you will not be able to flourish yourself, or you'll not be able to see yourself as a better or a seasoned writer. So I would say that
Great.
seek the right kind of approach. And that's why what I've done is I've also established, I'm a founder of UAE Book Forum, because I felt that we all write, but what happens with the readers? How do you promote reading culture? This is something that is going on it's not something that is on a rise, but it's becoming extinct. So how do you do that? So that is, you have to see the connect between reading and writing, and getting to having a certain platform where you can mentor poets. This is what I do as a veteran poet as well. So I
Oh,
feel that seek the advice, but seek it from the right people, and then have faith in yourself. Whenever you're in doubt, do not stop. Continue with convictions, show resilience to your own self, and do not be brutal to yourself. Sometimes we over expect from ourselves. So, as you said, it's okay not to be okay. So,
yeah.
as a writer, also, it's okay not to be okay. Not every day you'll be able to pen out a poem. Maybe you just there are some days where I would sit for hours and I'm like, yeah, there's something coming, but it takes me time to process that one stanza. But if I have done that well, my job is done. So do not be brutal to yourself. That's the little piece of advice I would tell the budding
That's
poets.
that's such a wonderful piece of advice, and I'm sure this conversation will inspire many people and aspiring writers as well. Okay, so ma'am, we are done with the questions, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts, emotions, and creative journey with us. It was a truly an honor speaking with you. So I want to say thank you to all the viewers as well. Uh, so please do grab a copy of Through the Despairs and experience this incredibly moving collection of poetry for yourself. Read it, reflect on it, and talk about it, and share it with those who may need these words. So the book is available on Flipkart, Amazon, and WFP store. So thank you once again for joining us, ma'am. And until next time, keep reading, keep feeling, and keep celebrating literature. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Navya.